Hello, my friends. It is David Ault, and I want to welcome you to The Gathering. I know it's been a little while since doing one of these, but if you follow this channel, you know that my partner and I have been overseas. We've been to Cambodia, but predominantly India. And for the last 15 days in India, we deliberately went back to our favorite area, which is the foothills of the Himalayas. It's a little town called Kinchi, and there's a magnificent temple there called Kinchi Dham, which is the main temple for Neem Karoli Baba. And we have friends who have built this magical homestay in the mountains, and they take really good care of us. And so we wanted to take advantage of those final days and to just be more contemplative and quiet, and to be available to the continued connection and magic that that place holds for us. And it did. And as we went to the temples and did prayers, and I did a lot of cave sitting, so much would come. There are so many experiences and stories that I want to share and tell to you. But I'm finding it a bit of a challenge, kind of a beautiful challenge, to be able to articulate it appropriately. And since being back just for a few days, I connected to a dear friend of mine here. And I was trying to share with him a story about something that happened with me and a holy man, a Sadhu, in one of the temples. And it was like my words were garbled. It was as if I couldn't enunciate, or I couldn't articulate the magnitude of that moment. And he smiled at me and he said, And he goes, perhaps it's because you're trying to process that moment through your mind. And I said, tell me more. And he said, well, if you think about it, that's how we're groomed. We process things as we're having an experience. The mind is working to find language, to find ways in which to communicate the experience. We all do that. That's our customized way of being in the human world. And he said there comes a point where you begin to play around processing through the heart. And I pause for a moment because I'm always aware of how glossed over or how shallow language can be. When we talk about the head and the heart, sometimes that stuff just goes over like that because we say it so much. But he really got my attention because he was saying, I want you to really tap into the distinction between those two things. What does it mean to process experience through the heart? Because sometimes that is void of language. Sometimes that is so immense and beyond the earthly realm that one has to become silent about it and just integrate it into the way in which they live. And so that really got me to thinking. In those 15 days, I wanted to go back to a particular specific temple in a village called Padampuri. It's a Sambari Baba temple. And when we were there last year in 2022, I had separation anxiety because I didn't want to leave. The sadhu who was there had such a presence that I felt like I had come home. And so to leave felt very abrupt. It felt very disruptive, and everything within my body wanted to stay. You could say that there's a familiarity there, some of the other explanations, past lives or whatever, but it was profound. So much so that I have remembered it for a year. And so knowing that we were going to go back for these 15 days, that was at the top of my list. And so we go back. And the sadhu is there. He has taken a vow of silence. He's becoming hard of hearing. He has an attendant person that works with him. But mostly he just meets whoever comes to the temple, sometimes not. And so you're kind of fortunate, or you feel like you've stumbled on a bit of good luck if you get there and he's available and you can be in his presence. So this time we go, there's about 6 people, very small crowd, sitting on mats around his tucket as he's laying on the tucket. And we have an interpreter there who's letting us know that he has now taken this vow of silence and that his hearing is going, and kind of giving us the rundown of the update of everything going on in the temple. And then as we're sitting there, he motions for his attendant person to bring out chai for everybody. Big, big blessing to be able to sit and have chai in the presence of a holy man. And as we're doing that, and as we're just slowly sipping and everyone is quiet and we're just sitting in that presence, that tingling and that homecoming and that feeling just begins to accelerate inside of me. He motions for an Indian man to rub his feet. And you may not be familiar with Indian culture, but bowing down to someone's feet or touching their feet is a common act. Even in modern society, people bow down to their elders. Maybe here in more Western mindset, we look at that and have strange feelings about it, but there it's second nature. And to bow down to the feet of a holy man or a holy person or a sadhu or a saint, to be able to touch their feet is considered a very incredible sacred act and privilege. So to be summoned by him, this man is rubbing his feet, and everything within me wanted to go, I want to rub his feet. And we continued to sit there, and the close of that visit, he allowed us to go into sort of the temple room where the lineage of holy men who have lived in that temple meditated and prayed. And there's beautiful murtis and pictures and things, and just so immensely powerful to be in that room. Same 15 days. I want to go back. The days are dwindling down and I want to go back. And we've seen so much more. We have hiked mountains. We have sat in other caves. We have met other holy sadhus and had breathtaking communication and conversation. And I want to go back. I want to go back to that one. And so I make a decision, and I'm going to get a driver, and I'm going to find somebody. It's about an hour and 20-minute drive through the winding hills of the Himalayas. Jairam decides he wants to go back with me, and so we go. And it's just the two of us. Kind of the same routine. We get to go in, we sit down, he summons, and they bring us chai. And I have this wild idea to take my phone out, which you're not supposed to, but to type into Google Translate, would it be appropriate if I could rub your feet? And so I show it to him in a moment of pause. And like he's going to test me, he puts his foot out and I rub. He's got socks on and he's got these knitted booties that someone has made for him because it's so cold. And I rub the foot through the knitted booty and the sock for about 30 seconds. And he does the Indian head bobble. And I don't know if he's like dismissing me or telling me to go away, but he's saying, no, come. And he goes and he lies back down on the tucket. And I sit at the foot where his feet are, and I just start to massage his feet. I take the booties off, and I rub through his socks and his ankles and his calves. For 45 minutes, I am touching the presence of this person who has been in this union state, and where many, many people have talked about how profound and how powerful his presence has been on their life. And as I'm rubbing his feet, and as I'm in this just unimaginably blessed, gifted situation, we are having this conversation mentally. And I say to him, oh, I want to be sure that this is real. that I'm not fabricating this through my imagination, but that you and I are actually having this connection. And he says, of course it's real. Everything is real. And everything is not real. And I got a little confused by that. And I said, I know those statements. I understand the principle behind that. But I want to know if this is genuine and I'm not just imagining this. And he said, yes, it's genuine. And yes, it's real. And yes, it's not real. And the conversation went on to this deep, resonant, profound, insightful gifts that he was giving to me. And as this was happening, there was this other part of my brain, my mind, that was going, don't forget this, don't forget this. You want to be able to share this, don't forget this. And as soon as we concluded, as soon as the message was transmitted and my foot rubbing was done and we began to leave, Jai Ram said, what happened? And I told him a little bit of it. And then it was like my mind just couldn't hold on to it anymore. And I was sharing this with my friend, and he said, that's because you can't process those types of things through your mind. You can only process them through your heart. The heart doesn't really care about the details and the language and the information. What it cares for and what it thrives on and what it produces back into the world is the vibration of the deep love and the deep caring. And as much as the intellectual part of me mourned the details of what transpired in that conversation, this part of me, the heart part of me, gets it. It gets it now that this is the next evolution for me. That in all of my years and all of my earnestness and all of my searching and all of my commitment to want to know or to teach or to share or to be, that again, it's all just been a stop along the way to something more highly expansive. That from this place in the heart is the unlimited manifestation opportunity of the universe. Not from here, not from the verbiage, not from any of the methodology or even the exercises. That's necessary. That's the stops along the way. But when it starts to get down into here, one becomes in tune with not just the words unlimited manifestation, potentiality, universe, but to start to feel it and to be humbled by that. And I walked away from those 15 days realizing that there are so many beings, just like that one holy man, just like that one sadhu, sitting in caves, praying, meditating, healing, absorbing the forgetful karma of humanity, hour after hour, minute by minute, year after year, for you and for me. There are so many unknown multitudes of precious conscious entities that are not just holding space, but purifying the space by which you and I navigate the world. And it's impossible for you and I to understand that through the processes of the mind, because the mind is bombarded by the noise, the imagery, the division, the separation, the pain, the suffering, the warring, the bombing, the starvation, the inequality. There's no way to get through that by processing spirituality through the mind. That processing has to, if it's to be, I'm gonna, I'll say, if it is to be fully felt, I was gonna say genuine, but that's not correct. If it is to be fully felt and absorbed, then at some point in our journey, the processing is going to have to start to take place within this area, beyond language, beyond instruction. And the thought of you and I being so loved and the enormity of that reminded me of some prose or poem piece that I saw on social media, and it recurs from time to time. And I didn't save it. I didn't know who it was attributed to. I couldn't even tell you what the exact verbiage of the poem or prose piece was, but I knew that it had something to do with the fact that there are countless people doing these rituals, doing this chanting, doing these prayers, doing this penance for humanity that we have no idea is taking place. And it's a love letter to the soul. It's a love letter to you and I. It's a touchstone to remember that there's far more going on in the realm of good than you and I are willing to fully understand. And to not forget that, to not become so seduced by the processing of the mind. So before I taped this morning, I was like, where is that? How would I be able to find that? And through the miraculousness of search engines, I found it. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I am going to post it in the comments because I think if you have seen it before, it's certainly worth reviewing again. And if you haven't seen it, maybe you will find the same tenderness and the same inspiration that I found in these words. And it's written by someone named Danielle Laporte, or that's who it's attributed to. And I'll just read the beginning. It says, right now, there are Tibetan Buddhist monks in a temple in the Himalayas, endlessly reciting mantras for the cessation of your suffering and for the flourishing of your happiness. Someone you haven't met yet is already dreaming or adoring you. Someone is writing a book that you will read in the next 2 years that will change how you look at life. Nuns in the Alps are in endless vigil, praying for the Holy Spirit to alight the hearts of all of God's children. A farmer is looking at his organic crops and whispering, nourish them. Someone wants to kiss you, hold you, to make tea for you. Someone is willing to lend you money, wants to know what your favorite food is, and treat you to a movie. Someone in your orbit has something immensely valuable to give you for free. Something is being invented this year that will change how your generation lives, communicates, heals, and passes on. The next great song is being rehearsed. And on and on and on, the sort of beautiful listing of the way in which hearts are holding space for humanity continues to transpire through this piece. And I realized that once again, back in the Himalayas, I realized that just in the maybe 7 or 8 caves that I spent some time in, that barely begins to scratch the surface of all of the nooks and crannies across the globe where people are holding vigil for you and I. And if you find that difficult to take in, to absorb, I don't blame you. I understand, because I think it's hard for us to process that from here. And so we get to experiment. I don't have any technique necessarily to share with you how to transfer from here to here, how to begin to process from here, other than through being quiet, not rushing to say things or to try to explain or to try to instruct, but to just absorb and intentionally look for the beauty. And it's hard. It's hard when, again, in this human incarnation, we have to get up every day and face the things that we face. But I hope that you can hear, just in this brief time together, that when we stop and get quiet long enough, when we rest our human eyes and our human ears from the stimulus out there, and we begin to close them and to soften this and to listen within, then the ability for us to find our next stop along the way is finally able to reveal itself. I hope this has been meaningful for you, helpful for you. And if anything, I hope that you can just hold on to this one thought, that you are so loved, that there are vast amounts of enlightened, intentional, earnest beings celebrating and honoring you through their practices. May that bring you comfort today, and know that I love you. Till next time.